guys, two things we hear tons about when it comes to recovery. How important it is to incorporate pacing, and then for many of us, also brain training, but they can feel like conflicting concepts. Do I ignore my symptoms? Do I push through them? Do I pace? What am I supposed to do? So in this video, I'm here with Lindsay Vine. She is a trusted voice in the ME/CFS and long COVID community, and overall just an amazing human. I just adore her. She is here to talk about just this. She has a ton of insight and experience with this, and she's going to share how to know when to ignore symptoms, how to know when you should pace, when maybe you should push a little bit, and how you balance these two concepts of brain training and pacing in your life. So please join me in welcoming the amazing Lindsay Vine. Lindsay, I've been so excited to talk to you and have you back on the channel. Thank you so much for doing this today.
Thank you so much for having me here, Raelan. I really appreciate the chance to chat with you.
I adore you, as does everybody else. So only good things to come from this video today. Very exciting.
Oh, thank you.
So I love this plan that we have to put out just some kind of like bite-sized videos for people, easily digestible, not overwhelming, just looking at some different topics. And today's maybe on the surface might not even seem connected to people, but they definitely are. We're all told about pacing and how important that is. And then lots of people are really embracing nervous system work and brain training. So tell us about those. How are they connected and how do you balance them or use them both at the same time?
Yeah, so I'm now doing coaching as well as helping people navigate which program is right for them out there. So I get a lot of questions from people about, how do I brain retrain, but also pace? Because in some ways they do feel a little counterintuitive, right? Because you're like, okay, you can tell your brain you're safe, you can keep going, it's okay, everything's all right, I'm safe. But at the same time, we're saying, make sure that you slowly increase your window. You don't go too crazy. Like, nobody should be going from bedbound to hiking the next day. You do have to be careful. So how do you do those two things together, right? So I get a lot of questions about that. So I was hoping we could, help people understand how to combine the two.
So how do you combine them?
Yeah, so it's, first of all, I want to say that pacing is not a science, it's an art. And that's something Ashok Gupta says all the time too, is that we can't, if you ever go to a doctor who says, increase this percent of steps every so many days, run, because that's just not how
literally run.
Yeah, run.
Walk at a casual pace and never come back.
Whatever is in your window of tolerance to that. But yeah, it's really important to recognize, and there was a study a lot of people got hurt by the fact that they were trying to pace at a very specific level. And it's really important to listen to your body and what is right for you when you're pacing. A lot of terms for there's baseline or your window of tolerance, what you can do without feeling worse the next day. And then the idea is that we're going to slowly increase that, but just at a level that feels right for you. So first, to help people understand what I mean by pacing, it's not something that's very specific. It's actually very much what's right for you. And the cool thing about brain retraining, because it's teaching our limbic system to feel safe, our whole nervous system is able to relax more. We actually can do it more effectively if we combine the two. So I think that there's definitely some tips I give people. One is, first of all, I'm sure you teach in your brain retraining program, because now Raelan has a brain retraining program, that the biggest thing is to let go of the fear around increasing how much you do, because that's what brain retraining helps with, right? Is that we're letting go of the fear around it. Yes, we're going to go at a slow pace that feels right for us, but we need to make sure it's done without fear, right? And then something else I would definitely say is that there are small symptoms we get, right? Sometimes they pop up like a headache or sore throat, or maybe we start to notice we're getting a little sensitive, our eyes. And there are certain symptoms I would say you can do a little brain retraining and say, I'm okay, I'm fine, and try to do a little more and see if it goes away. Often these symptoms will just pass. But then there's other symptoms that you want to listen to for sure. Like, I would say fatigue. If you have intense fatigue, never try to push through intense fatigue. That's one I would never say, like, keep going, keep going, because that's a really big sign at a cellular level that, I don't know why my cells are in my arm, but at a cellular level that, we've passed the cell danger response, that the ATP is not being used in our mitochondria of our cells to give us energy. Instead, it's being put out as a warning sign to other cells of, oh, we need to get into protection mode, right? So there's something at a cellular level happening with chronic fatigue syndrome that does need to be respected. And that's something that isn't always acknowledged in brain retraining programs, and some people end up going past their limit and crashing. So I'd love to hear in your brain retraining program how you address pacing.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I'm just reflecting on my own journey. You said something really important, because when I first started talking about my recovery, a big part of my recovery was, exercise. But when I look back at it now, I know it was 100% just a brain retraining activity, because I started with 1 minute of really gentle movement, and then I increased that every week by about a minute. So then 2 minutes, but it was so gentle. Like in that minute, that movement wasn't healing my body or making me stronger necessarily or fixing the chronic fatigue syndrome. It was just slowly getting used to the activity and learning that it was safe and trusting, like, okay, I did 1 minute. And I was very flexible, just like you said. It wasn't a rigid, like, oh, it's week 2, I have to do 2 minutes. Like, I'm like, if I don't feel ready, I'm just going to stick with 1 minute and do that for another week.
Yeah.
But I see now how it was, and I was very much at peace with it. So I trusted it. I wasn't scared of it. And I did get symptoms all the time. My body gave me little flares and little pushbacks. And I always thought, if it felt like so much of a symptom flare that I couldn't do it again the next day, then I just wouldn't. I wouldn't push through it. Like, it had to be in that manageable kind of space. And just being at peace with the fact that I was going to feel worse every once in a while, and that was okay. And it didn't mean that I was recovering, and just understanding that that was part of the process. But I think it's really important how you talked about knowing that line. And I never tried to push through severe fatigue. I don't think anything ever good will come from that, other than a whole bunch of suffering. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways we talk about it in the course. It's the biggest thing, I think, is that pacing has become something that a lot of us type A's, or whatever we are, perfectionists, have turned into something that is also stressful.
Yeah.
So it's very much just a focus on not having a rigid system, having a level of acceptance of where you are and the energy that you have, and not pushing through that. I'm taking a little bit of an inventory of where your energy is going every day, and are those the things that are helping you to get where you want to go. And we also talk about creating an evidence list to help you, have that faith and have that buy-in that you're getting better, because we don't always feel that. We might be mostly optimistic, but we have bad days where we kind of feel hopeless and like we're getting nowhere. And a part of that list is actually a part of pacing, because you're writing down what you can do on your good days. And you're like, okay, on my good days, I can climb the stairs, I can get the mail, I can sit up, whatever that is for you. But also paying attention of, on that list, we're keeping track of, what are the things that make me feel worse? And you start to see those kind of energy vampires in your life, and see that it's not necessarily so much about activity, because all activity isn't created equal. So we can't say, do 5 minutes of activity a day and you'll be okay, and that's your pacing system. Because if it's in a stressful environment or around stressful people or something that is triggering for you, it's going to wipe you out. Versus if it's sitting outside and feeding the squirrels or doing something that makes you happy, it's something that's helpful. So it's very much just a more relaxed, kind of self-compassionate approach to it, with awareness of what's going on, and just kind of acceptance of where you are, and pushing through things in very, very small ways.
Yeah. No, you raised some really good points there. Like, I call it your 3 different buckets of energy. So you've got the physical bucket, there's physical energy, then there's mental energy, and then there's emotional energy. And they're each forms of energy. So we have to be aware, if you have a really emotionally taxing day, you might have less physical energy. Or if you're doing a lot of mental work, like if you're on your computer all day working, it makes sense that you're not going to progress as much physically. I'll give you an example. So in my recovery, I really concentrated on the physical first. I wanted to get my steps up. It was really important to me to like be able to go out in the world. It brought me so much joy to get to the dog park and be able to, be in nature. Whereas my podcast partner on Post Viral Podcast, Stu, he wanted to get back to work sooner. So he started more with the mental energy. So for quite a while, he wasn't able to do much physically, but he increased his ability to go to work much faster than I did. Whereas I increased my physical ability much faster than he did. And it wasn't until he took 3 months off and went to Southeast Asia, and then he increased his physical bucket. So it gives you an example how these are all types of energy we have to take into account when we're doing our recovery journey. And then the other thing you said that was really important is about the perfectionism that comes around pacing. And we want to do it right. We want to, make sure we don't go over. A lot of people end up using heart monitors. I even think I was too stringent on how I used my step counting. Like, I kind of wish I didn't do that now, because actually studies have shown that people who use those kinds of tools progress slower than people who just progress in a relative way. That was something that Ashok Gupta told me. He was studying that. And that's why we have to be careful to not be too strict about pacing.
It's interesting too, you say about the walking, because right now I'm reading the book Outlive by Peter Atle. I'll link it in the video description. It's really good. He's a doctor and just really knowledgeable on all this stuff. And he's talking about the concept of, step counters, and well-intentioned people are telling us to do this and get in your 10,000 steps if you're healthy. If you're on a recovery journey, it might be 20 steps, whatever that is for you. But he's saying the same, that studies are showing that, all steps are not created equal in terms of health benefits. And going for a 10-minute walk in a park, a casual, stroll through nature versus, a 1 hour stressful walk through like downtown sidewalks, busy, it can actually have a negative impact on your health. So just really kind of that self-management piece of taking in all the information and then thinking what fits for me, what feels right for me, what feels good for me, and not being so strict about it. And it's, we're told all these things, and it's easy to be like, okay, well, I have to do what everyone says I have to be doing and stick to this rigid program. But the stress of that can have a really negative impact on things, even when you're healthy. So
absolutely. Yeah. And one more thing I wanted to say that leads from that is the importance of like having a positive motivator for what's helping you progress instead of something like stressful, like I have to get back to work or I have to be able to do this. You know what I mean? It's really interesting with my example because I did DNRS and I got better for a while, and then I crashed really hard when I had come back from a trip and I was in an environment, I have a feeling that had mold and I was isolated, all these factors of why I probably crashed, but it was really hard for me to get back to brain retraining after that. So for the next few years, I was kind of, if I can say half-assed doing it. I was kind of brain retraining, but I wasn't because, I was a little bit traumatized by it. I was so confident I was going to be better. And then I had crashed back to like zero. So the next few years, it was really hard to really trust it, even though I knew it had helped me, right? So it wasn't until I had, with pacing, worked my way up to about a stage where I could walk for about an hour. And then I felt like I was ready to get a dog. I just had this faith that getting a dog would help me. And it was a big risk to take when you knew what could happen in the future, right? But when I got her, she had more energy than I expected. And at that point, I was like, I need brain retraining to help me get to a stage where I can really take care of this dog. So I had this positive motivator because I loved walking with my dog. And I was so excited about that every day. So I would brain retrain in the mornings and at night to help myself get that extra boost. And it really did, because the brain retraining gives you dopamine, and then that helps also with healing. So for me, that was my positive motivator. But I do get clients who are like, I need to be back at work January 1st. And it's so hard to heal when you have that pressure on you. So it's really interesting, the difference between a positive motivator and a stressful one.
Yeah. And we do talk about this in my course, that the brain retraining activities themselves, in and of themselves, need to be a positive thing, because it can be easy for this just to be one more chore on a checklist of things that you have to do every day, like take out the trash, do the brain training. It just becomes stressful. I didn't get my morning one in. So just really changing the way you approach it, and just giving you ways to think about it differently as this gift of time that you give to yourself, and you're excited to do it. And then you get to just put yourself in a bubble in the moment and just really focus on yourself and get really excited about the future. And that just, a lot of like gratitude for yourself, that you're taking the time to take care of yourself, and excitement for, the progress that you're making, because you're right. And even I learned this from Ashok Gupta. This is like a Gupta program apparently added today as well. that your brain is in a more neuroplastic state when you're in a happier, calm state. So even for the brain training activities to be more successful, it's helpful to get yourself in that state before you start them. And this can even be just, even if you're having a bad day, doing some breathing, some breath work before you get started, or just things to kind of calm your nervous system and get you in a good state, so that you're getting kind of the most bang for your buck, so to speak, when you're doing all of this.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's like a really big neuroplastic advantage to variability. So switching it up, like where you do it and like how you do it. I'm sure in your program you give tips, and I tell people like all these little ways that they can try and make it fun or different, so that it doesn't just become repetitive, and it won't be as effective over time when it gets too repetitive. So.
Yeah, that's a really good point. This isn't actually in the course, but I talked about it in another video recently. But like brain retraining happens all of the time. Like it's not just when you sit down and you do your activity. We've been doing brain retraining our whole lives, just without knowing it. And it's anytime you're changing your thoughts, it's anytime you're building new neural pathways in your brain, which happens, through your thoughts and through interrupting things. So one of the things I've been suggesting recently is just to take pieces of paper and a Sharpie and write things on them that are either a part of your brain training program, or just things that make you happy, whatever message kind of puts you in a good place. And then you'd think, just plaster them all over where you are. But then you start to not really notice them. So you have to put them places where they surprise you. So like inside of a cupboard, or, somewhere in your bathroom, in your closet, once you open the door. And then every time you see it, just kind of take a moment to read it and just, and that's brain retraining. It all is. And by mixing it up, it kind of keeps it fresh and more impactful.
Yeah, that's a really good one. I like that. I'm a big fan, and one of the first things I always tell clients to start with is every night before bed or morning, whichever works better for you, writing down 5 wins and 5 gratitudes, like 5 things you're grateful for and 5 things that are going well. And it can be as simple a win as like, I did a body scan today. I gave myself a hug. Like they can be so little. And with the gratitudes, change it up too. It doesn't always have to be like my family, my friends. It can be like, I saw a flower today that was so beautiful. And like, it can be that I got to touch like the cutest dog. It could be such simple things, but just that variability in them is also important. And it really teaches your brain to be in a different state and use different neural pathways.
And gratitude practices in and of themselves, are also brain retraining activities.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
When you know every day at the end of the day that you're going to come up with 5 things to be grateful for, you start scanning your environment. Like, is this going to be one of my things? Is this going to be one of my things? And it creates a bias towards gratitude and looking for good things. It's changing the way your brain is wired. It's all good stuff.
No, I think that's really, we give people some tips here and help people relax on their perfectionism a little bit, and also just let go of the fear. But I think both pacing and brain retraining are important. So it's just about how you do it, right? It's not really what you do, it's how you do it.
Really good stuff, Lindsay. As always, you're incredible. For people watching, please take a moment to expand the video description because all the links that you need to find everything you need from Lindsay. She has so much great stuff between her podcast, her recovery program guide, her coaching, and everything else. It's all there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay. I really appreciate
you.
I'm so excited to have you back. And if you guys haven't already subscribed, I invite you to consider subscribing because Lindsay's going to be back on the channel. We have a series of short little videos for you with really important topics with just practical tips and things to hopefully help you along the way on your journey. So yeah, thank you so much, Lindsay. Thank you.
And check out Raelan's brain retraining program too.
Also linked in the video description. Yes, lots of people have joined. It's wonderful to see so many people there, and early feedback is really good. So,
I'm sure you're a wonderful teacher. Yeah.
Big hugs to you guys watching. Keep at it. Keep going. You have totally got this. Thank you for watching. Thanks for hanging out. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got something out of it, and I hope to see you in the next one.